Hey everyone, welcome. Today I have a special guest that I always have every month. It's Michelle, and Michelle's from Happy Inside. Michelle, just quickly, a lot of new people who are going to come across you. Um, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, look, I'm a gut-focused therapist, embodied psychotherapist. What that means is that I work mostly with clients who are experiencing gut disorders of any kind, and we attend specifically to the psychological and behavioral and emotional aspects of those gut symptoms. So that might be, in simple terms, stress and anxiety, and how stress and anxiety is affecting the gut. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like an interesting area. It does sound like stress and anxiety plays a role in people's gut symptoms. And of course it
Well,
does. I'm going to say 9 out of 10 people, maybe 10 out of 10 to an extent, right? That's why we have you on, and we're going to talk about a little bit about this area. We're going to focus on anxiety today. So if you're watching live, say hi and where you're from. With the software, sometimes it only shows me it doesn't show me your name. It just says Facebook user. I don't know why it does that, but anyway, so I can see someone said, hi, Michelle and Joe. Thank you. So
all
yeah,
right.
if you're watching, say hi, tell us where you're from. And then if you get questions while we're talking, please do ask. And if we have time, we'll definitely get to those. So the topic, what did I call today's topic? We called it, is it mind or body anxiety causing gut issues? So then there's a difference between mind anxiety and body anxiety. I actually don't know what you're talking about with this. So maybe we should start with these two different sources of anxiety.
Yeah, we should definitely. And hi, everyone saying hi there. Marnie, welcome. So anxiety, look, I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it's so prevalent. It's everywhere. I mean, it's kind of like put your hand down if you don't experience anxiety. Yeah, it's just I mean, I probably see it a lot in my work. So I might have particular glasses on there, but I see it out in the world a lot, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and there's a lot more anxiety that people are experiencing, even who have never experienced anxiety in their life before. So it's really lathering on thick and fast out there in the world. And it can really take a toll on any of us. And so, I wanted to talk about what the different types of anxiety are, just so we can decipher that. And you mentioned that there's body anxiety and mind anxiety, also known as head up and head down anxiety, right? So let's start with mind anxiety or head up anxiety, same thing. So we're talking about up here, essentially.
Oh, I was thinking looking up, looking down. Okay.
This part of us. Yeah.
Anxiety here up.
Head up, head down anxiety. So head up anxiety are around thoughts, essentially. And thoughts I'm talking about are here in our frontal cortex. So this is where, when we worry and stress and ruminate, this is where we do it, in our frontal cortex. It's a cognitive process. So we actively get in there and we actively go over and over and over and over things, and we anticipate and we worry about things. So that is essentially mind-based anxiety. Now, mind-based anxiety can then activate feelings of anxiety in the body. So when we have thought processes that are stressful, worrisome, anticipatory, if we have them a lot, what happens is there's a message that gets sent from this part of the brain to our amygdala, which is the fear center of our brain. And our amygdala is there to be available and ready to kick into gear to protect us from any kind of threat, right? And so if it perceives a threat, the amygdala starts pumping out stress hormones into our body. Adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, all the stuff that makes our heart race, that makes our breathing fast and shallow, that we attribute also to anxiety, right, and stress. So if we are having a lot of stressful thoughts up here, then it is going to send messages to that part of the brain, and it is going to activate that stress response in the body. And so now we feel anxiety, and anxiety is it's like a whole package. It's mind and body, right? We feel it in all of us. So usually people don't just go, oh, my head is anxious. They can feel it in their body too. They can feel maybe their tummy's upset, they're jittery, they can't slow down. There's a lot of tension in the body. So it tends to be happening in both places at once.
Yeah, I get sweaty palms. Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but isn't that body anxiety or body-based anxiety, or is that like, I don't understand well, I guess you haven't talked about body-based yet, but so mind-based starts here, then it does present as symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the starting point, right? That's the important part. Where is the anxiety starting? Is it starting up in the head, or is it starting down in the body?
Okay. And is that important to know if you've got gut issues and you feel like anxiety is an issue?
Yep.
That's an important differentiation to know for treating it, or?
Yep, precisely. Yeah, for treating it. And the reason why is we'll go into body anxiety now, or head down anxiety, is that we both do a lot of work around the gut, and all the scientific information is not really my forte, but I'll give it my best shot. So when we have gut issues, and you might be able to kind of come in here and share a bit more, but we can have all different diagnoses, right? We can have food intolerances, we can have SIBO, we can have leaky gut, we can have IBS. There's lots of different issues we can have with our gut, and a lot of those, all of those I mentioned, and plus more, essentially, affect the microbiome in our gut. So those balance of bacteria that we have. It can affect, then that microbiome imbalance can affect the neurotransmitters in our gut. So, for example, 90% of our serotonin lives in our gut. Those can also affect the integrity of our gut lining, right? So we have our gut lining, just say this is a microscope version of it, and it's like a fence. And so there's these tiny little gaps in our gut lining. And so the food particles that come in, there's certain, nutrients and particles that are meant to fit through these tiny little gaps. And so they move through into the bloodstream. But when the lining of our gut is compromised, this happens. And so it becomes leaky, right? And so all these particles that aren't meant to fit through start moving through into our bloodstream. And of course, that's pumping around our body. So we now have things in our bloodstream that aren't really designed to be there. And then we also have something called a blood-brain barrier. So there is meant to be a barrier for things that cross over into our brain. And that can be compromised as well. And so things cross into our brain that affect, the function. We get brain fog, we get confused, we get overwhelmed, we get anxiety. There's all kinds of things that happen there. Do you have any to add to that about the gut? I mean, that's my kind of basic understanding.
Yeah, it's increased permeability. No, I mean, the more, it's originally like sounds very woo. but actually, there is a lot of evidence now that people are experiencing increased, at least intestinal permeability, and so there's compounds and things that aren't supposed to pass into the blood that do, because you need that, right? That's how nutrients go from food into your cells. They go into the blood from your small intestine. So, this is kind of a symptom. It's certainly not a cause of an issue, but more a symptom, as you're saying. It could be the symptom from the anxiety. Yes, also foods you eat and things, but lifestyle and your mental health, which is what we're talking about. And then the blood-brain barrier, same thing. Like, I guess there is an increased permeability there, and if you get certain compounds going in there, then that's obviously not ideal or very new to science, but does appear to happen. And then we're sort of learning about that now. So are you saying that anxiety contributes to this increased, or this leakiness?
Yeah, definitely. So stress definitely affects the integrity of our gut. And so anxiety is a form of stress, right? Anxiety and stress activate our stress response in our body. So we now have stress hormones pumping throughout our body. And if you guys have seen my videos with Joe before, then you'll hear me often pummeling the fact that our gut is designed to be affected by stress. It's meant to either shut down or empty very quickly, because when we have that amount of stress in our body is trying to be really effective and efficient, and it's gathering resources from all the parts of our body to attend to this so-called threat. And so what it does is changes the function of our gut. It says, I don't need you to digest breakfast right now, while I'm trying to do things to help you to survive. So it either kind of shuts it down and gives us constipation, or it seeks to empty it really rapidly, and we can get diarrhea and nausea and vomiting. So it's affected. Like, we need to really get on board with that to know, yep, my gut is designed to be affected by an increased amount of stress or anxiety, right? So when that's happening all the time, it's affecting, the integrity of the gut. It's, the gut's meant to kind of have this peristalsis, or this migrating motor complex, every 90 minutes. And we do all these things in our life that interfere with that happening. And stress and anxiety is, a big factor that interferes with that happening. So you have things that either are moving through too quickly or aren't moving through at all because this isn't happening very much. And so you have bacteria and things, sitting in your gut, or at least waste material sitting in your gut for too long, or not long enough. So you're not drawing things out into your bloodstream effectively.
Yeah. Okay. So this movement, so there's automatic processes that are meant to happen, and then our anxiety and our stress is interrupting that. Is that right? Yep. So if you have, like, anyone watching, do you identify as having like a nervous tummy or a nervous gut? I think a lot of people that I speak to would say. Put yes in the comments if you have a nervous tummy, you think. Because that's what's happening. So it's interesting. So because a lot of people identify that, oh, I have a nervous stomach, I have to go, like, oh, I have this meeting or this interview, like, I need to go to the toilet. So, a lot of people usually identify as having diarrhea with that. But you're saying constipation as well can be nervous stomach. Just nothing moves.
It will feel different. It won't have the butterfly-y nervous stomach, because that's a very specific feeling. It does feel butterfly-y, that one, and can feel quite nauseating. Whereas, because there's too much movement at once, right? It's suddenly working very quickly. Whereas constipation will feel different. It'll just shut down. Nothing will happen in there.
Okay. So, there's a lot of people saying yes. So,
wow.
Is that body-based? Is the nervous stomach body-based anxiety? Is that what you mean by that? Or is that still mind-based?
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, the ones that you've described, there's definitely mind-based anxiety, and
Okay.
you guys could probably thank you. And there's so many people saying yes, 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 and absolutely, and yeah, this is fantastic. I always get a nervous tummy whenever I also get anxiety, says Anne. This is just so common. So if you have a nervous stomach when you have anxiety, then it is head up anxiety or yeah, it's mind anxiety that's causing the nervous stomach. So that comes first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's an example of body-based anxiety, and why does it matter?
Yeah. So just say you have increased permeability and you're struggling with food intolerances, and you might eat, I don't know, it could be any food. Sorry?
Garlic.
Yep, could be garlic, it could be histamine food, chocolate, cacao, for example.
Right.
And yeah, and if you have a reaction to that, let's talk about histamine for a second, because I know a little bit about that. So histamine is also a neurotransmitter. Now, if you have an intolerance to histamine and you eat histamine food, what will happen is your body will produce more histamine. So when you produce more histamine, you then produce more adrenaline to deal with the histamine. And guess what happens to your heart when you have adrenaline in your system? Doesn't matter where the adrenaline comes from, whether it's stress or anxiety, or whether it comes from something in the body. People who have anaphylactic, attacks, they go to hospital, they get given adrenaline. They will tell you, I am pumped and wired after that, because their whole body is pumping with adrenaline, right? And so suddenly you now have body-based anxiety. It started in your body, didn't start in your mind, right? You have body-based anxiety. The heart's pumping, the lungs are pumping quickly. You have adrenaline pumping through your bloodstream. And so often if we don't know where that's coming from, we also get anxious about that. Well, what's happening to me? I was feeling okay 10 minutes ago, and then I had lunch and now I'm feeling like this and I'm anxious all the time. And it's not as clean cut as that, just say it's histamine. We're eating histamine all day long. We're getting it from, so many different foods. We don't have a clear cut answer about, I was like this, then I ate that, and now I feel like this, unless we're doing some kind of elimination and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so we end up with anxiety in our body. So our body is doing all the physiological things that we relate to anxiety because there's adrenaline pumping through us.
Okay. So what the heck are you supposed to do about it? Because it's a feedback loop, isn't it? Especially when you start to identify patterns, or when I go to this location, my tummy feels this way. And you believe that to be true, and lo and behold, it becomes true. And then you're in this rut, right? You're in this cycle.
Yeah.
So how do we resolve this anxiety? Do we need to approach mind-based versus body-based differently? What do you do with clients, or where do we start?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. We need to address it. And it is a bit of chicken or the egg, right? Which one's coming first? We don't know necessarily, but we can figure it out. So I'm just reading some comments here. That's amazing. We got, a few people saying things like bloated tummy when anxious. I've had a couple of full-on panic attacks, and that's the only time in my life I've had an upset tummy. It's like it speeds up digestion. Yep, bang on. That's exactly what it does for you. It speeds up your digestion. Anxiety.
So it's speeding it up because your brain is because when you digest, it requires blood and energy to do that. So your brain is like, well, we need it all up here to survive this danger.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Perceived danger, which these days your perceived danger is like, work tomorrow or picking up the kids on time or something like that. That's your perceived threat.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah. So the brain responds the same as if it's a survival situation, that it's life and death. And if your nervous system is heightened a lot of the time, so just say, we want our nervous system to be sitting down here in its parasympathetic state. This is the rest and digest state. If we want to be having it down here if we can, as much as possible. But we also have our sympathetic nervous system state, which is the fight or flight response. That's when it goes into the stress response. And so a lot of us, we tend to sit up here in the sympathetic nervous state most of the time, right? And just say here is our ceiling. This is kind of as far as we can go until we completely tipped over. And so if we're sitting up here most of the time, if the sympathetic nervous system or our stress response or our fight and flight is activated most of the time, then we tend to be sitting up here, which means we don't have much room before we really hit our ceiling. And so the closer we get up here, the more it starts to perceive little things as threats, as like, yeah, we're really in danger here. And so it gets more reactive. So the more on board it is, then the more reactive you are because your nervous system is heightened all the time. So yeah, it activates and then it says, right, we've got some kind of threat that we need to get on board to protect you from. And so, yeah, I need all these resources. It's very clever. It says, I want all the resources I can get. And so, yes, it pulls that energy, that blood flow away from your digestive tract, because ultimately the heart and the lungs are the main areas of function that it's interested in. And so it's pulling as much blood and oxygen into the heart and lungs as possible.
Yeah, you have to remember, guys, like we are the product of so many thousands of years of evolution. Like let's even say back 10,000 years when I think agriculture and things sort of started, or humans started using fire and things like that. But we have and even so many thousands of years before that, coming to modern humans, these devices were useful then. they were keeping us alive, all these functions of the body. Yeah. And then in the last literally 60 years, so you've got this tens and tens of thousands of years of humans, and then in you can't even see it in 60 years, 100 years, we've started to have stress about non-threatening stress, actual not real life threatening, but we just stressing about stupid things really, or things that probably don't necessarily matter. And that stress, it's not like the stress that caveman you faced when it was like a threat of someone or some animal or something like that. This is stress now that's your everyday life that you're perceiving as stress, and it doesn't come and go. It's not like here and then down and then you're back into rest and digest. You're kind of just here all the time. It maybe comes down on the weekend, but so your body, like we've evolved to we've had so many years of needing this, and just now, like in this blip of our timeline, it's all changed. And of course, we've not adapted to that. And it's the same with the way we digest food and the foods we eat, right? It's been our whole human span of human life has been eating a certain way. And then in the past 50 years, we have, like literally since 1970s, 50 years, we've had some processed food and things. So it's just like we can't expect the body to be able to adjust, and it never will in our lifetimes, because it actually takes tens of thousands of years. So we need to learn to deal with that reality first be aware of it and then listen to Michelle about what to do next.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, let me go back to your original question, because and then it is important to know that, and about the stress response in the body, because when we know that, actually we can really have some appreciation for our human body, to go, wow, it's quite fascinating that it's always reading a situation, and it's always responding to the information that's coming into the brain, and it's activating certain processes in me that it's designed to do. I'm always intrigued by that. I think it's fascinating. And if we can come to a place where we really appreciate that and go, wow, my body is quite incredible, it's doing that for me, then we can maybe have a friendlier relationship, between our brain and our gut to say, okay, it's doing exactly what it's designed to do. So if it's doing exactly what it's designed to do, then I best change the information that it's receiving. And that's where I suppose my work comes in, so we look at mind anxiety or head up anxiety, which is about thought processes. So really, it's simple as that. We need to look at, what are you thinking about? What are the things that are stressful to you? And how were they affecting you in your life? Because I'll put my hand up, we all have stuff that just seems, it's very convincing that this is so stressful to me, this is overwhelming in my life. But when we really unpack it, when we really take some time to spend with it and get to know it, and we realize, and we can resolve it for ourselves, essentially, and we realize actually it's not that big of a stress at all. It's just that we have so much. There's like so many little things that all compound, and so it's hard to get any space even to know what's going on in my mind up here. What is this stress that's happening? So yeah, we need to really, let me think about this for a second. First point of call would be, we need to slow down, because we cannot recognize what's going on within us while we're going a million miles an hour. So we need to slow down first of all. And that can be, you don't have to do a particular practice about that. It can just be giving yourself more time in your life, not rushing from one thing to the next, not over scheduling yourself, being realistic about how much time you actually have in the day and what you can fit into that day.
What if you want to achieve things and keep everyone happy and tick all the boxes, and you took on a lot of responsibilities maybe?
Yeah, true. But at the end of the day, how's that working for you? Is it working? Is it in balance with your well-being? Because if it isn't, then there's some adjustment options there.
Yeah, I mean, human beings are all about balance, homeostasis, it's called in a physiological term. Like if things are out of balance, look, you do not have a fun time, and that happens internally. And it's also, I think, in this topic, very relevant that you said that how's it working for you? Things have to be in balance, and we're not in balance. That's a large problem for people. Are people more anxious now than, say, our parents' generation, or is it just talked about more?
I'm going to say people are more anxious now. It's definitely talked about more, but there's more anxiety, I would say. Life is a lot more complicated. We have so much more input constantly. I read an article that was sent to me by a client the other day about just like technology, phones and all the different apps, Slack and Facebook and emails and blah, blah, blah. And this article, she's a journalist actually, and she basically walked through a day of her life and everything that she did in a day and what she was checking at all times, and she'd just do a quick check in the supermarket line, and she was on the phone in the car, and and I was so stressed out halfway through this article just from reading the amount of input this woman had just from the phone. It was the phone, actually. She did talk about the computer, but the phone was the most part. And I was so stressed out, I actually couldn't continue reading the article.
It's really important that you bring that up, because that's probably a very glaring, obvious change in the lifestyle between our generation and the ones before. It's almost like being switched on or connected has kind of worked against us. And you put, because I'm working all the time, and a terrible example of this, and experience a lot of anxiety and gut related issues related to stress. And then when I email you and it's like out of hours, I get an automated reply that's like, I'm not checking my emails unless I'm working.
Yeah.
Go slowly, Michelle. I like that. Go slowly. Tell us about that. I think that really resonates with me. I need to do that.
It's so true, because otherwise, if we don't take agency over this for our own lives, we are at the whim of whatever it is that's coming to us. And that's what's happened. We're at the whim. We no longer say to ourselves, hang on a second, I've got a choice here about whether I want to check those emails and about whether I want to be on social media at all. We seem to have given away our capacity to choose that because there's some kind of expectation in the world. Everyone's doing it, and so therefore we need to participate in it, right? But we don't.
I just thought of something, but it's like we are kind of the slave to the device in many ways. Like if you're watching this on your phone on Facebook and you're like actually clicked on watching the live, if you scroll away now, it will keep us on and it will move us to the top right, so you can still hear and see us if you want to come back, but it allows you to go and consume something more until your brain gets the dopamine that it will never get from scrolling. So it is designed to encourage that. So I just thought about, as you're watching this, the irony is not lost on me that you're watching this on social media, but the fact that you can try and go and scroll now, it will keep you on the thing, but it just moves it. It's crazy. So anyway, but let's get on track. Actually, you've got a question here. You've got a question at the bottom. We can't see who it is, Facebook user, but I can actually bring it up here. How do you distinguish when you have mind anxiety or actual gut problems at any given time? My anxiety is fairly well checked by medication, but I've lately had issues with food again.
Wow, that's an excellent question. Thank you so much. Because I imagine that many of you are wondering this as well. How do I distinguish between the two? I have a questionnaire. I think it's on my website. I'll have to have a look. But I have a questionnaire. It's a mind gut questionnaire, so it can help you distinguish how much you think about your symptoms and how much stress is in your life, and it gives you a score at the end. So that's a pretty quick way that you can distinguish how much is in the mind. Just for yourselves, you can ask yourself the question, well, can I slow down? Do I have the capacity to slow down? It's a simple question. If I can't slow down and be still and bring my mind into present awareness in any given moment that I choose to, and have agency over where my thoughts are, then you're experiencing mind anxiety. It's very simple. Yeah.
I have two things as well.
Yeah.
Number one, I think somewhat a false dichotomy. I don't think mind anxiety and actual gut problems are two separate things. There can be overlap for starters. Yep. So it could be that you've got a food intolerance and the mind anxiety, but certainly for sure it can be, hey, you actually don't have a food intolerance. It's like it's all coming from your how you deal with stress. The second thing is one that you use, Michelle, is like, do your symptoms, are they the same when you're on a holiday or a vacation, or your environment is different and your life is different?
Yeah.
Do your symptoms persist, or do they change? And try to reflect on that or observe next time.
Yeah.
That's a good tell, right?
Yep, very good tell. Very good tell. So if you're out of your daily life where all the stressors are and your symptoms improve, then yeah, we can tell that there's definitely a lot of mind-based anxiety there. And you're so right. It is, I want to keep answering that question. It's really woven in like this, the mind and body anxiety, and one can cause the other. And so it doesn't matter where it starts. It's that chicken or the egg. If you have, things in your gut, then that can cause anxiety in the mind. And if you have anxiety in the mind, it can cause, anxiety in the body. So they are hard to distinguish. But good news. This is why Joe and I are here, because essentially we do both of these things. So, Joe and his team and the program are there to help you distinguish which foods are affecting me, what's going into my body here that's affecting me. So you can really tease that out through guidance with the dietitians and, eliminations and reintroductions and challenges of foods. And so the great thing about those, I think, is that, when you really tidy things up and then bring something back in, a food or a food group or a particular chemical back in, then you get a really obvious answer about, did it affect me or didn't it affect me? So you'll be able to see exactly what it does in your body. And that knowledge is excellent, I think. Really puts you in a position of agency, to know where to go to from there. So you can attend to body anxiety in that way, by working with practitioners to help you, look at what's going on in the gut and what's affecting the gut directly. And then, of course, I'm here for all the mind-based stuff, for the psychological, the emotional, and the behavioural side of things, where we can really look at, what are those anxieties? We need to know anxiety is not just there for no reason. There's always a cause, right? And so it could be a physiological cause, but it could be a psychological cause. But no matter the reason that it's there, it's a really valid reason. And we want to understand what that reason is and resolve the reason that it's there in the first place. So it doesn't matter where your anxiety is coming from, it's important, and we want to figure out that root cause of it and resolve it from there, so that it is no longer playing a part in your body and your mind.
Okay. Yeah. We've got some questions coming in. I did also want to talk about, well, what do we do for anxiety? Like, we could touch on meditation, we could touch on like some of these other points, but why don't we, should we try and do some of the questions first, and we'll try to intertwine it. Yeah. So you're in the corner of my screen while I color in. At least part of my brain is off the screen. Yeah, so that's fine, right? You can listen and do something, but it's more about if you're scrolling through the feed. Every time I do it, I catch myself very quickly now. And this actually touches on mindfulness meditation, because it's all about your thoughts. You're trying to focus on your breath, right? But when your thoughts go, when you start thinking about something else, the whole purpose is, can I catch that, observe that happening, and come back and get better at it and get quicker? And now I'm at the point where as soon as I'll pick up my phone and I'll be like, I definitely am not actually, I don't need to check this. I don't even know what I was going to do with that. So I'm catching myself before I even do it. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is, when you're scrolling, it's just the dopamine. You're looking, what are you looking for? No one can actually answer that. You're just looking for something. But you don't know what.
Yeah. And, I just want to add to that as well, going back to your comment about like our parents and our grandparents and how different our lives are now, because, I'm 43. When I went to school, we didn't have phones, we didn't have computers. At school, I think we, during my teenage years, we kind of got a computer at home. But when I went to school and I cycled to school, all I did was cycle to school, usually on my own or with my sister, right?
Boring.
Yeah, boring now. Man, I wish I could get that back. I feel like that's what I strive for in my daily life when I do my morning walks, that I can just walk and just focus on, my surrounds and where I am, and not be listening to a podcast or checking my phone or sending someone a message or catching up on something. But the whole point of that, when I rode to school, then I just cycled to school. That was all I did. I didn't have input from anywhere else. When we did the groceries, we did the groceries. All we did was take the things off the shelf and put them in our basket and stand in the supermarket line and observe what was happening around us and wait for our turn and, be ready to pay. And that was it. Like I went to a drive-in cinema this last weekend. Really fun, by the way. But, back when people used to go to a drive-in cinema in those times, would be probably the only time anybody ate in their car. Back then people didn't eat in their car. There was no McDonald's drive-through. You didn't have have your lunch on the way to somewhere because you were running late. Life was so simple. We didn't have so much input. There was definition and space between all the things that we did. And so when I suggest slowing down, we want to start finding a way we can replicate that as a starting point, because we can go 100 miles an hour for 14 hours of our day and then do half an hour of meditation. The percentage is way off on that. It's half an hour of meditation is not going to cut 14 hours of craziness. We need to find a way where during those 14 hours, we're taking the pedal off. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's go to a question. How do you suggest facing the fear of foods? I've eliminated so much to tame anxiety, but now I'm basically starving and I'm terrified to eat. I panic when I eat unsafe foods and I have no idea how to distinguish between a food reaction or just plain panic.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry. This is a really, really common response. I call it food anxiety. Really, really common. Yeah, where do I start with this? Food may have given symptoms at some point and it may still give symptoms, but if you have eliminated so many foods now and you're still experiencing symptoms, then it may not necessarily be the food. And I'm just reading that question again. I panic when I eat unsafe foods. So there's a lot of good information in that sentence there. If you're panicking, again, really common when you eat unsafe foods, then it's we need to attend to the anxiety, because the anxiety is going to overactivate your gut. So, but by the time you eat that food, your gut's in a pretty bad state to receive it. And so the likelihood of it receiving it well and responding well to it is lower, minimal. And so, how do I distinguish between a food reaction or just plain panic? It's tough, but really, if you've removed a lot of foods, we need to attend to the anxiety and the panic, because once we calm that down and the gut calms down, then it'll react less to what's going in. Then, of course, you can expand your diet back out with Joe and his team.
So essentially Rachel needs to work on the anxiety piece. I guess staying with her comfort foods, all the safe foods, I mean, and not really re-challenging it.
Yep, I would say so, because what's going to happen is if you're experiencing panic and you're trying to challenge foods, you're not going to get a good result, because the panic is going to override any result that you want to see from the food. So really attending to the panic first is important. And that's a lot of work that I do. A lot of work with clients is around food anxiety. We can slow that down. We need to really slow down that panic and anxiety in the first place, and then we work very specifically around how to do that. What is the panic? What's the fear? And we start to see what happens in the body when that panic comes about. We see that body anxiety happens. And then we tease it out. Essentially, we work very specifically around meal times and around eating. But yeah, we need to attend to that panic first. Yeah, Rachel, I hope that answered the question. How do you tend to the panic? Well, it's a great question. I suppose that's something that I would do one-on-one with you, because we need to understand where the panic is coming from in the first place, what the source of it is, and to acknowledge that and to work with that very specifically and uniquely to you.
Yeah, the context is so important, guys. It's the same with any nutrition question as well. Like, even if I say, well, what should Rachel do now in terms of what should she eat, or should she stay with the food she just eats now? But it depends on, like, is she at risk of things? Like, what's the actual diagnosis and issue? So, like, of course we can't give you any specific advice. It would be a disservice to you, because we don't actually know your situation. And anyone who does give you advice like this, I hope they understand your situation if you're going to take on what they say as fact, or so someone suggested, was it a medical professional, first of all? And then this is why I'm weary to sort of try to recommend you anything, because we don't have context. So yeah, same for Michelle as well. Like, you need to know, well, what's causing this in the first place. I guess you need to sort of start at the base and build up from there. And
it's the fear, that's what we attend to, is the fear. That's what panic comes from. It's fear-based. And so we need to attend to the fear and understand that first. And that helps guide us where to go. Yeah. Thanks, Rachel.
Hina, what are some examples of boundaries that we can set associated to managing anxiety and the gut symptoms it creates? I'm a full-time uni student. I find it difficult since school is now online. So I guess she's not got the boundary of, well, this is where school is and this is my bedroom. And I switch off from that. And it's the same for a lot of people. Like, who's working from home now? And how are you finding that? I'd be curious. I've been doing it since 2013, but it's kind of hard. Like, it's not for everyone, and I definitely haven't been good at setting boundaries for that. Like, I can work in bed. It's probably the worst thing you want to hear, but I can lie in my bed with my laptop for sure.
Wow. Yeah. But like, we just have to know whether that works for us, right? If you can do that and you can still maintain your well-being, it's fine. It's actually not a problem. But if you find that any of those behaviors aren't helpful for you, then that's when we need to have a look at, well, why isn't it helpful? What's it doing to me? And therefore, what are my other options?
Yeah. Okay. So with Hina, where, she's obviously identified that, well, I need to set some boundaries because I'm studying at home and my anxiety's gone up.
Yeah. And Hina, I really want to comment here on managing anxiety. Going back to what I said before, there's a reason we experience anxiety. So you've got options. You can either manage the anxiety that's there, as in put kind of Band-Aid solutions on top, or we can attend to the underlying cause of the anxiety in the first place. And I'm a huge fan of that one, because if we can understand why the anxiety is there in the first place and look at some other options around that, then you don't have to manage anything at all. You actually.
What's an example of why someone's anxiety is there in the first place?
Something as simple as I've got too many things. I'm doing uni and I'm trying to work full time as well. That can be an example. It's you're trying to cram in 20 hours of requirements into 16 waking hours a day, right? That just on its own can be a really basic example.
Okay.
So it's about acknowledging, first of all, hang on, I'm a human being. I need these things in my life. I need a balance of this. I need this much sleep. I only have this much capacity. Maybe I've overcommitted myself here. And so I need to know if that's the case. And if it is, then I need to make changes to how I'm using the time in my life. Just an example. Yeah.
Okay, so how do we make more boundaries there? Like for me, I think that I'm a firm believer that social media creates anxiety in many different ways and affects people differently, right? And some people are like, we're different. It's like if I teach two people how to shoot a basketball, like one person's going to be better than the other, or one person's going to deal with something better than the other person, even if they have the same experience, the same exposure. So it's like some people just do not handle other things as well as others. And so you need to sort of look at, working at home, for example, am I just not dealing with this well? Or is it something else? But what kind of boundaries can I make? And with social media, it's certainly like, well, I don't know. Is it as simple as like making a rule with yourself? Well, I don't pick up I check my phone twice a day. Like, is that creating a boundary, or is that not going to work? Do we need to be hardcore and I need to throw my phone in the toilet?
Yeah. And, it's a great point you make, Joe. We are each unique as human beings, which means that the boundaries we need to set for our own health and well-being are different. They're unique too. And so first and foremost, we need to know those boundaries within me. What if this is the space here, and on the inside is what keeps me well and healthy, and on the outside is what isn't? Well, then what is it that's in here? So we have to know that about ourselves first, because we can set someone else's boundaries for us, but it might not work because, you might say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Joe was thinking that I could just throw my phone in the toilet. But I've got kids. I need to be available to them, to receive their message or their phone call or whatever. Okay, so that boundary doesn't work for me. But maybe what I need to do is what do I have available on my phone? Do I have 3 million apps on there that I look at all the time and all the notifications are turned on constantly? I'm one of those people that has the little red, 635 emails down there. Always at me to read them? Or do I say, okay, I need my phone available to me, so that I can take a call from somebody. And so therefore, do I keep it on silent? Do I turn the notifications off, but just have phone calls and messages coming through? Do I take emails off my phone altogether? We need to look at what's going to work for me in my life. Hina, so Hina, I don't know if I can answer that specifically for you. How do I set some examples of boundaries that we can set associated to managing anxiety and the gut symptoms it creates? Work backwards. So start with your gut symptoms. Notice what is contributing to those gut symptoms. So what stressors do I have in my life that contribute to those gut symptoms? Or you said anxiety. What am I anxious about? And then once you know, okay, these anxieties contribute to my gut symptoms, what can I do about these anxieties? What boundaries do I need to set about these anxieties? Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll do a quick fire of these last 2 questions. We'll just do them quickly because we're running out of time, and then we can wrap up. Can anxiety and digestion problems cause redness on the face and a sore tongue? Marie?
I don't know, but part of my answer is going to be yes, only because anxiety overactivates the nervous system, and the nervous system runs throughout your whole body. So it's possible, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, we don't have context for you, Marie, so it goes back to what I was saying before. But plausible, like it could be food chemical, like histamine, for example, glutamate, something like that. We often see reactions that are skin or allergy type reactions. That's what that sounds like to me. But that could be a lot of things. It could be environmental, something else.
Yeah.
Is it normal for a conversation like this to create a stress anxiety reaction?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
But yes.
Yeah. Which is a good thing, I think, because if it is creating anxiety, it's telling you it's
uncomfortable.
winding something up in you. It's got information to give you that you're uncomfortable with, possibly. And so actually that's in my world, in my work, that's a really good sign that we need to dig a bit deeper and see why that anxiety is being created from this conversation.
Yeah, it gives me a feeling of anxiety to think about having to go deep into my anxiety with you, for example.
Well, yep, that's fine. But you know what? That's normal. This is why, as a society, we don't stop. We don't slow down because people are afraid to feel what they'd feel if they slow down. So there's I might have said it before, there's this quote, and I don't know who it's from, but it is, the fear of suffering is greater than the suffering itself. Yeah. So the fear of that suffering, so the fear of how am I going to feel if I slow down because I'm busy all the time, and I keep myself distracted and busy all the time because I don't want to feel whatever I'm feeling in my life, right? So therefore I need to keep busy because the minute I slow down, then I'm going to feel it and it's all going to be too much. But here's a hot tip. It's never too much. It's actually a relief. So it might be too much if you do it on your own, but when clients do it with me, you're in a safe place and you've got someone to facilitate for you and hold the space for you. It's never too much. It's a relief. It's like, oh, thank God I know what it is and I don't have to run from it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that one. I thought of one before about being uncomfortable. It's that your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. So if you want to, I mean, this is about personal growth, really, like about getting from, well, I'm stuck here and I want to be here. You got to get uncomfortable.
It doesn't have to be for long. It doesn't have to be for long either. Yeah.
Good point. Cool. Okay. Have we given people an idea of where to kind of start with this? So you have your podcast, right? You have, like, should we be starting with meditation? I mean, everyone talks about meditation. I mean, we're kind of out of time, but what's the thing we should start with? Would you say to anyone?
Just slow down. Just take time out for yourself. Carve time out for yourself to slow down and do nice things. Whether it's read a book, whether it's take a walk, slow down. Do one thing at a time. I would start with those, not meditation, unless you have some experience. Meditation's confronting. If you can't slow down in the first place, meditation's like going from 0 to 1,000 in a split second, and it's too overwhelming.
Slowing down mean like when I eat my lunch, I have to eat in silence by myself, stare at the wall?
That's an extreme version. No, it means, when you're having lunch, eat your lunch. Don't scroll through Facebook at the same time. Notice the food that you're eating, and, you can enjoy your conversation with somebody else at the same time, but be present in what you're doing. Do one thing at a
Or
time.
just notice how hard it is to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of fascinating to me. Like to sit down with your lunch, but don't do something else, or with a meal, and just eat the meal and don't do something else, and just see how you feel. Because people 10 years ago did that, or a bit longer. They're probably watching morning news or something else that's also a waste of time. But even like, just say your parents, like, they were just doing one thing at a time.
Doing one thing. Yeah. So that's, slow down, do one thing at a time. We're not going to overcomplicate it here. We actually need to keep it simple. The more simple it is, then the more space it creates, the easier it is for you. And we want you to succeed at it, right? So do the simple thing first. Just slow down, one thing at a time.
Yeah, I like that. Go slowly. Michelle White. I'm going to make a little banner that has your little quote there. So if people want to learn more about you, they can go here.
Yeah.
They can listen to your, like, the episodes of the podcast that you have on wherever podcasts are, and then there's an app on the iPhone.
Yeah, everything's called Happy Inside, guys. I'm also keeping it really simple. So no matter where you look for me, whether it's a podcast or an app or the website, it's just Happy Inside. You'll find it all there. Yeah.
Cool. And then if anyone wants help with the nutrition aspect as well, you can message me. Just like click my picture or something and send me a message. And then, of course, we're very much focusing on, the reason I talk to Michelle a lot is to learn myself, but I just, in my experience doing this since 2011 when I started, is like, people, the food aspect is rarely the entire issue. Of course, sometimes, but this whole, our lifestyles, this is what it's about. Like when we say lifestyle change, it's like, yes, it's the diet and are you physically active, but it's here. What's going on in here? It's having a profound effect on all of us, and we need to start taking back control, because no one else is going to do it for you, and ultimately you're responsible for your own outcomes. And so we want to help people do that, and have everything in one place. So, like, can we help with your nutrition? Can we think holistically? Can we help with the psychological side as well, or whatever we want to call it? So if you want help with that, you can send me a message and let me know what you thought about this chat. And we're going to try and, we've done many, but we'll come up with topics. Hey, if anyone thinks of a topic they think they would like to hear us talk about, comment, and because then I'll go through and read them later on, and that'll give us some ideas about what to talk about. Yeah,
I can see today's topic was really, really interesting. It's a big topic. 99% of clients that come to me experience pronounced anxiety. Thank you so much. That's very nice to hear.
It's got to be one of our clients, but it
has to be.
We can't see. Some people are private for whatever reason.
Tell us your name.
Was it you, Michelle, that wrote that?
Yeah,
as Facebook user?
I'm multitasking. Yeah. Facebook on over here. yeah.
Michelle is so pretty. Oh, wow. Thank you.
That's amazing. But look, I forgot what I was saying. You guys distracted me. This is a huge topic, anxiety. And we can see how many people have come on today and been participating and asking questions, that anxiety is a massive, massive topic, and it's really prevalent. And I want you to know that there's something that we can do about it. You don't have to live in this state forever. Joe and I are back. We're here.
Yeah. Leave it at that. You do not have to live your life this way if you choose not to. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Michelle. and I'll speak to you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.